The pre-production of Dead Horses started right after the recording of Wide Awake in Tokyo EP Part 1. Usually what happens is once I'm done writing an album, uh, there's always a sense of liberation because you get to writing in such a context or a certain amount of ideology that once that's over with, you got all these other ideals too. That is it's a sudden release of ideals like, oh, okay, I can finally move on and start doing this and take another journey. So that's usually why I start projects one right after another. And Wide Awake in Tokyo was a really challenging album in and of itself. There was a lot of experimentation that worked out in favor of the album actually. So it was great to come off of that because that was a real confidence booster. But it was also a reality check because once I got done writing that album, I felt like I could no longer write the way I had been writing. I felt like I hit the peak as far as creativity in the way I had been doing things up to that point. A lot of it, actually all of it, being self-taught. And so with this album in particular, I knew I had to go out and broaden my sights, spread my wings, and definitely learn new new ways about doing things. And so I took vocal lessons, I took piano lessons, and I took a class in audio production. And I think this album really represents that leap, because I really do think it's a leap as far as songwriting, audio production value, vocalization, lyrics. I think this album really personifies that shift. And that's kind of why I picked the name Her Majesty's Crown besides Soundscape. Even though I think Soundscape is still a really good band name, but it was supposed to kind of signify that change, that leap. But it was also supposed to represent the fact that I came off of Philo Gant, and the idea when these songs were first being written was to bring them to Philo Gant, even though we are kind of breaking up at that point. There's always that idea that maybe we'll get back together, and so when I started writing these songs in pre-production, I was still bringing them to Philo Gant and being like, all right, look, there's a song I wrote. We should learn this. We obviously didn't learn any. We did Lost at Sea one time, um, and Jake Hayes played on Dead Horses. But that's as far as that ideal ever went. Um, as far as the ideal Dead Horses, the album title, that came from the U2 song So Cruel off Acton Baby. And there's a line in that song that I really like. It's between the horses of love and lust we are trampled underfoot. And I thought that was a really powerful image because horses are usually thought of as noble and majestic. And so you get these two horses that are noble and majestic, representing love and lust, and it's trampling us, it's trampling the relationships that we build. And I think we all kind of feel that way. And so that's where the ideal of the horses came from. And the dead horses came from the ideal of that just being dead, the majestic, noble love and lust as being dead is no longer existing. And I thought that was even a better ideal. And that's kind of what I drew off of as far as the album title goes. And that eventually turned into the song Dead Horses, which is what the song is about. Love being no longer there. It's gone, it's dead. Um, of course, the album actually turned out to be more about just death in general, which is, I don't want it to be a depressing album. I don't think it is a depressing album. I think it's a heavy album. I mean, death is a pretty heavy topic, but I don't think it's depressing because these songs were written as stories. They're very character-based songs. I took that kind of from U2's last album, No Line on the Horizon, where Bono writes in character, and I've never written in character before, so I thought that'd be a nice avenue and a challenge for me to try to write character songs. And these characters, all except three songs, that being Tide, The Bitter Taste of Wine, and Seven Seas of Lonely, all these characters are facing death. But like I said, it's not depressing because these characters know they're about to die. or something has died. I mean, like I said, Dead Horses isn't really about death as far as human being, but more like love. And Ball of Yarn really isn't about death either, but it can be taken into that context also. But these characters know they are going to die. It's about accepting death. It's about coming to terms with it, and not so much grieving as much as being like, all right, I'm about to die. I want to be forgiven. I want to be honored, and I want my memory to last. And who's going to do that? And that kind of goes into the other ideal of the album between lovers and friends, which is represented on Ball of Yarn, Puzzles, and Seven Seas and Lonely, where you have each of those songs has a line in it about lover and friends, and that kind of is based on the idea you can't be lover unless you're friends. And you also love your friends. I mean, you might not physically love some of your friends, but you still love them. And the only people that are going to take your memory and shine it on is those people, is your friends and your lovers. And that's what most of these songs are about, is being forgiven, honored, and remembered by your friends, your lovers, your family, God. There's a lot of references to God in this album. Either I'm not a really religious person at all myself, but the ideal of that is also underlaying throughout the album, and I think that's why a lot of people have been drawn to these songs a lot more than any of my past songs, is because people can relate to these characters, they can relate to these songs, they can relate to the stories and these feelings, and so yeah, it was a really big leap for me in everything, and I feel really proud about this album, and I really hope people, hopefully this isn't my benchmark, like hopefully I improve, but I hope people realize that, these are a bunch of great songs, and that they will in and of themselves not die and be remembered for what they are. Now a little time for product placement.